to the 70s, Lonzo, I know you know a lot about bootlegging in the music industry. So I've always wondered about this. I know back then in the 70s that, comedy shows were getting bootlegged. Famous concerts were getting bootlegged when someone would come to town. Nowadays someone can sneak their phone into an arena, stadium, and record a video and clear as hell, put it on YouTube, and you have a clear video, which is technically a bootleg. But how did in the 70s, with the big ass cameras and things like that, how did one bootleg, say a Jimi Hendrix concert, or I'm just throwing, he died way before, but I don't know, a Marvin Gaye concert? How did someone bootleg a Marvin Gaye concert back in the day and then put it on 8-track or tape or whatever you guys did back then?
Usually you do somebody in the production company. Yeah, somebody in the production company may have sent you a copy. There was back then in the 80s, a VHS recorder was like $2,500. We only got a handful of videos of us performing because that shit was too expensive. That's a good question, dude. Now, a lot of times you may see Motown and other record companies would record their artists and create little videos or whatever. And now some of those videos, because of the digital age, have gotten in the hands of bootleggers. I know at one time I had a whole collection of everybody performing. I had Soul Train, I had some of everything, because the companies were digitizing that stuff, and then it happened to just get out. Somebody would just leak out. Okay, it would just leak out. But I don't think there was a whole lot of bootlegging far as movies back in the day. Records, yes, because you can get them and you can actually get a clean copy, make a plate, blah, 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 make an 8-track. 8-track was the shit. And then after a while, people started dubbing the dubs, which was horrible. Oh my God. That was the only thing about 8-tracks and cassettes. You had to have something fresh off of a clean master. You couldn't dub a dub unless you had some super Memorex or something like that. If that was your master, you can get some pretty clean shit out of a Memorex or a TDK. But for the most part, you had to have somebody on the inside to get that shit for you.
Okay. Tyree has a good question. He says, "Do you know about vans, trucks that would park near the venue and tap into the system?"
They had professional systems. That was a professional rig. They had a full-blown 24-inch recorder in the van, in the truck, mobile studios, and they had a generator. They had all the shit. And if you ever watch James Brown, the James Brown movie with homeboy that died, James Brown did that live at the Apollo, and because the record companies back then, that shit was expensive as shit. It might cost you 10, 15 grand to come out with a truck, or have somebody bring a mobile, rolled a 24-track and a mixing board into the studio. It might cost you 25, 30, I don't know. But I know James Brown did it for live at the Apollo. Record company didn't want to do it. And he told them, "Kiss my ass, I'm going to do it with my own money." And that's what he did. And that was one of his biggest selling albums, live at the Apollo, but because he hired his own mobile truck to come out there and record that shit.
I love hearing. See, that's where the nerd comes in. I love hearing stuff about that. Someone asked you, Lonzo and Dusty, got any Brian Big Bass Gardner and or Bernie Grundman mastering stories? Possible interviews with? Didn't Ruthless do business with these names?
I did business.
That'd be Big Bass Brian? Is that who we're talking about?
Big Bass Brian and Bernie Grundman. They were on Sunset. You couldn't get Bernie Grundman. Bernie Grundman only worked for the exclusive Michael Jackson, Prince, Luther Vandross. He wasn't fucking with you. Okay? He was like the ultimate dude to master your shit. When you go to Bernie Grundman's shop, fucking tapes be stacked up like like pancakes in a fat man's house. I mean, just be stacked up from every record company all over the world waiting for Bernie to do their shit. That's how we got Big Bass Brian. Okay, Brian was his second. There was a couple of guys over there, but Brian was the only one that listened to us and would cut our shit deeper. Because that's
DJ Quik always shouted
Big
out Big Bass Brian back in the day.
That was his shit. That was his dude. That was our dude. He did Turn Off the Lights. And listen to Turn Off the Lights. That some bitch is fat as fuck. He did my first album, and he did my first album, Turn Off the Lights. I think he did Surgery and Juice. Brian did. They were expensive as shit back then. Okay, Brian charged damn near Bernie money, but only thing about Brian would let you sit in the studio with him and let him cut your shit. Bernie wouldn't let you do that. If you got to Bernie wouldn't. Ain't nobody sitting in the studio with Bernie. Brian, Brian would let you sit in the studio with him, and you could help. You tell him what you wanted, and he became adapt to the hip hop sound, and that's how he got the nickname Big Bass Brian. There was another guy we had also that was down the street from Michel'le. He did all my Xerox and house parties and stuff like that. I forgot his name, but he was super cool. But he didn't have the same machinery. You know, he had his lathes were a little bit older than Bernie and Brian stuff. He's charging $125 a side, and if you just got a quick record, that shit was perfect. Hey, give me the 250 shot, and I'm out of here. And he let you sit there with him too. And he wasn't bad at all. He just had the same reputation that Bernie and Brian had.
Now, back then, there was a lot of equipment that you all had to deal with. Today, you walk into a studio, you got a mixing board, a laptop, a microphone, and you're pretty much in business. You know, take yourself back to whatever, 81, 82, 83, even going up to Turn Off the Lights. If you walk into a typical studio back in the day, what are you seeing? I know reels, and give us like the breakdown of what you would see walking into a typical 1980s studio.
You walk into the studio, ain't no clocks, ain't no windows. It's the most calm, quietest area you will ever be in. When there's no music in the studio, no music going on, it's dead. It's dead. And it's buttons. The most intimidating thing you ever want to see in the industry, especially when you first walk into a studio, a mixing board is the most intimidating thing you ever want to see. Because you got all these goddamn buttons. You got, especially a major studio,